I call the meeting to order. MPO Urbanized Area Policy Board. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, and we're at the City of North Liberty in their City Hall. So we recognize alternates now. I don't think we...
Yeah, I'm not aware of any alternates.
I don't think we have any. And we have a quorum, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Consider approval of meeting minutes. They were circulated. Are there any additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve? Okay, motion, second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Kent, you want to set the next board meeting?
Yeah, we're tentatively looking at May 21st because we've got some federal requirements we've got to meet. As per usual, I've not determined the location yet, but we will send out our typical save the date about a month in advance.
Thank you. Public discussion of any item not on the agenda. Anyone from the public want to speak? Seeing none.
Yeah, I did just want to mention that Oliver Weiline is our newest board member, and just welcome him to the MPO board. Oliver took over Andrew Dunn's spot on the Iowa City Council, so welcome to Oliver, and he was able to come on very short notice. I asked him if he was coming in a meeting about 2 hours ago, and he said, I'm not aware of the meeting. So,
Yeah. Wow.
so thanks to Oliver.
Good job, Oliver.
Yeah, no one tells me anything. I'm joking.
Okay, then we go to number 3A, consider approval of locally determined projects for the MPOJC 26 Transportation Planning Work Program, and that's you, Kent?
Yes, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Kent Ralston, Executive Director of the MPO. As many of you know, each spring we compile a list of transportation planning work program projects for the upcoming fiscal year. The exercise is required by both our federal partners, the FHWA and the Iowa DOT. But we also utilize the list to schedule and plan ahead for data collection and research necessary so that we can complete those projects the following fiscal year. And in your packet, there is a list of projects that we have received to date from you and your staffs. Also, we're aware that throughout the year, additional projects will come up, and this is when I typically give my warning that although small projects we can add to our work program, if there's any really large, tedious, staff-intensive projects, we will bring those to you all for approval prior to putting staff times towards those. So that said, in your packet, that list honestly probably represents about a quarter or less of the actual work we're going to do next year. There's probably not a week or definitely not a month that goes by that we have not spoken to either your planning staff or one of your engineers about a project that will help them out with. So typically we don't need to come back, but if it's a really, really large project, we'll make sure that you're all comfortable with it before we move forward. That said, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee did unanimously recommend approval of the list at their meeting last week on March 25th. And unless there's any other questions or comments today, we'll augment the list with any other projects that we might receive between now and your next meeting. And then we'll bring the entire draft transportation work program to you all for approval at your next meeting. So today, just looking for a motion to proceed with the draft list of projects.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, we don't do roll call here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, then we go to B, consider approval of MPOJC Surface Transportation Block Grant, the Transportation Alternatives Program, and the Carbon Reduction Program funding allocations. Hi, Emily.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Emily Bothell, Senior Associate Transportation Planner. This is the exciting part of the night here. In February, we solicited for our Surface Transportation Block Grant, our Transportation Alternatives Program, and our Carbon Reduction Program applications. We received 11 applications requesting just over $22 million, so far more than we have available in funding. The available funding amounts for each program, along with application summaries, the final project scores, and the scoring criteria were included in the packet. And at their March 25th meeting, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee recommended funding for the projects and amounts specified in the attached tables with a vote of 9-4 in favor. I will give a brief presentation of each project by program and will allow applicants the opportunity to share any additional information. And today we are asking the board to consider approval of the funding allocations. So I will begin that presentation here. And we are going to start with the Surface Transportation Block Grant applications. We received 2 applications in this funding program. STBG funds go towards improvements to any roadway or bridge on the federal aid system. It could be transit capital projects and bike and pedestrian projects. And so the first application we received was the Burlington Street Bridge Building Better Connections project. This was submitted by Iowa City and the University of Iowa. This is for the replacement of 2 Burlington Street and Highway 1 bridges over the Iowa River, the reconstruction of portions of Grand Avenue, Byington Road, and Melrose Avenue to allow for 2-way traffic, bicycle facilities, and pedestrian accommodations, and the rehabilitation and replacement of the pedestrian overpasses that cross Riverside Drive and Grand Avenue. The total project cost is $70 million, which I'll scroll up here for you. And they are requesting $10 million in STBG funding. This project is on a federal aid route, and the project is in the long-range transportation plan. The project received a score of 58, so it was the highest score of the 2 projects submitted under this program. And the committee recommended funding this project at $9,574,243. In Iowa City, if there's anything else you would like to add, or University of Iowa, feel free. And I will just go over, this is another photo of the proposed design along with this photo here. And if not, I will move on to the next project. The next project is the Forever Green Road Extension Phase 2, and this is a joint project between North Liberty and Coralville, and it is the section in green there. This project would construct Forever Green Road Extension Phase 2 from the western limits of the eastern section of future Forever Green Road Extension, Phase 1 to Naples Avenue. The intersection of Forever Green Road and Naples Avenue is planned as a roundabout, and the newly constructed urban section would include 2 vehicle travel lanes, a 10-foot wide off-street multi-use trail on the north side, and a storm system. The total project cost, I'll scroll down here, is $6,795,000. They're requesting $2,264,000 in STBG funding. This project is not on our federal aid route system because the road does not exist today. But this project is in our long-range transportation plan. It received a score of 19 points. The TAC recommended funding this project at $38,084. And I'll pan over North Liberty or Coralville. If there's anything else you would like to add. This roundabout here is the roundabout that exists at 12th Avenue and Forever Green Road. And then this roundabout here is the one that exists at the new one at North Liberty Road to the east.
What would the recommended amount, the 800,000, et cetera, what would that actually go towards if the road doesn't exist right now? Would it be to help build up the trail, build out the trail?
Yeah, it could go to any portion of the project,
okay.
yes. Yep.
So they could hold on to it until they amassed more? Or does it need to be spent?
Potentially. So right now, the allocation of this funding, Kent, do you have that, the year? It would be in FY 30 or 29.
I'm sorry, which project is this?
This is Forever Green Road Extension Phase 2.
This one would be in fiscal year 29.
Okay. so
Federal
money
fiscal,
would be
so it'd be available
sitting
October
there.
1st of 28.
Okay.
So there is time to gather more grant funding.
Got it.
Yeah.
That was kind of where I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not necessarily ours.
Right. So from the time the funding is programmed, so let's say this gets approved and is programmed in federal fiscal 29. From that point, the board's policy is that they have 3 years to make progress, which, if that's design, they're moving towards property acquisition, whatever that progress might look like, they've got 3 years then to start that project. So in that 3-year period, they could be acquiring other funds, like Emily said, whether it's another grant from the MPO, because we do this every 2 years. So it could be that they get more MPO funding. It could be they go after another Iowa DOT funding or another source.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good question.
Okay, with that, I will move to the Transportation Alternatives Program applications. We received 4 applications under this program. Transportation Alternatives Program funds enhancement activities that have a direct relationship to surface transportation facilities, including facilities for bicycles and pedestrians. So the first project is the North Dodge Street Improvements Project pedestrian facilities. This was submitted by Iowa City and the Iowa Department of Transportation. This project will include sidewalk, curb ramp, and crosswalk improvements within the Dodge Street corridor from Burlington Street to Governor Street. The total project cost is $707,600. They're requesting $565,372 in TAP funding. This project is in the Long Range Transportation Plan. It received the highest project score at 39 points. And the TAC recommended funding the project at the dollar amount requested. So I will go Iowa City. If there's anything else you would like to add.
I just had a question.
Yeah.
So in meeting with some of the neighbors on the north end of that street, they had expressed interest in trying to see if underground electrical wiring was, how costly that would be. They were wanting it, and they said that the city responded to them saying that it might be too costly. I didn't know if there was any type of estimation on what that looks like from a financial point of view.
So we don't have that information available.
Okay.
So City of Iowa City Engineering, their staff would have that information.
Okay.
In that, I think the undergrounding or any cost estimates related to that were not included as a part of this application.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
primarily the pedestrian facilities. Yeah. So the photo shown here is near the intersection of Governor and Dodge Street, kind of at the top of the hill there.
Yeah.
Showing the condition of the sidewalk and curb ramps. And then this is at Church Street, showing the pooling of water there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next project. This is the West Forever Green Road Trail from Covered Bridge Road to South Jasper Avenue. And it is the blue section shown there on that map. The project proposes constructing 4,680 linear feet of 8-foot wide multi-use trail along the south side of West Forever Green Road, which is classified as a major arterial roadway. The trail would be constructed out of Portland cement concrete and would extend from the western edge of the Fox Valley subdivision to the east terminus of the West Forever Green Road and South Jasper Avenue roundabout. Scroll down here. The total project cost is $832,000, and they're requesting $465,500 in TAP funding. This project is not in the Long Range Transportation Plan. It did receive a project score of 25, and the TAC recommended funding this project at the dollar amount requested. Now, they have a couple photos here. This is near the Fox Valley subdivision on the east side. And then this is near the intersection of Jasper and Park Avenue on the west side.
Emily, what is the points it's out of? 100?
So it is out of, it can range from, let me take a peek here. It can range from 84 to 91. So depending on, there's one criteria where you can get 14 points or 7 points. So
Okay.
out of that, this is how the projects are scoring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Emily, does this end up leaving a gap between the city of Tiffin's sidewalk system and this trail, or does it connect all the way to it?
I think the idea is that it connects all the way to what would be the roundabout that'll be constructed at
Which will
Park
then
Road.
hook into the...
Correct. So I
Okay.
think once Tiffin's done with their project, and I think it might actually end up being a North Liberty project. I'm not sure who's
Right,
taking
yeah,
the
it's,
lead.
it's a
North
North Liberty
Liberty.
project.
Yeah.
but And in that roundabout, there's a trail as
Okay.
part
Yep.
of that that will flow up to and continue over into Tiffin.
Yep. So once North Liberty's project's done, I think the idea is this completes that sidewalk network or trail network all the way, then from Park Road all the way into well into North Liberty, almost to 965 then.
Correct.
Okay, I will move on to the Iowa River Trail Connection Project. This was submitted by the City of Coralville. This project will construct a 0.45 mile long section of 12-foot wide concrete trail from the First Avenue Trail stretching along the north side of the Iowa River Landing and connecting to the Iowa River Trail by the Iowa River. Total project cost is $575,000, and they're requesting $347,750 in TAP funding. This project is not in the long-range transportation plan, and it received a project score of 25. TAC recommended funding this project at the dollar amount requested. And this is a photo looking east. Similarly looking east, but from a point further west. The fourth project is the North Ridge Trail Reconstruction Project submitted by the City of Coralville. This project will replace a 0.24 mile long section of the existing deteriorated asphalt trail with a 10-foot wide concrete trail, and it will also include the addition of a 105-foot long section of new 8-foot wide sidewalk crossing Crandick Railroad along the south side of Forever Green Road. Total project cost is $385,000, and they are requesting $303,620 in TAP funding. This project is in the long-range transportation plan, and it received a project score of 20. TAC recommended funding the project at the dollar amount requested.
Emily, can you speak to the significance of whether a project is in the long-range transportation plan or not?
Yes, I was going to wait till the end, but I can answer it now. So for projects that receive any funding, they must be included in our long-range transportation plan. So any allocation of funding tonight needs to be contingent on any projects being in the plan. So if a project is not in the plan right now, we will have to work through that process and get it in the plan before that project is then programmed in July. And the same is true for our federal aid routes. So for STBG, if a project is not on our federal aid route system right now, any allocation of funding would need to be contingent on that project getting classification. And again, we will work through that process. If I believe it's the Forever Green Road Extension Project, if that receives funding, we will work to get that classified.
And is that part of the points criteria?
It is not.
It's a requirement. Sorry, it's a requirement of us, but it's also a requirement of the Iowa Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. So they're going to want to make sure those boxes are checked. You know, the federal aid route system. There's only a certain percentage of our total road network that can be on that system. Is how that operates. The long-range plan, I think the idea is that we all know what our goals and objectives are in the future. We have this collective thought behind, in this case, a trail system. And I think the idea there is that we are all working towards meeting the goals of a long-range plan, not just picking and choosing projects, sort of ad lib. That said, these are all good projects, and whether some of them are in the long-range plan or not, they would still meet the goals and the intent of the long-range plan. It's just that our long-range plan has to be fiscally constrained. So when we say they're not in the long-range plan, there's actually lists of projects in our long-range plan that are in the plan. And it's hard for you all to tell us, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, oh, we want this specific trail in the plan. So oftentimes, some of the projects that you all apply for aren't in the long-range plan, which is completely understandable. That said, and I mentioned this already, but I think all of the projects that have been submitted, I think there's 2 that aren't in the long-range plan, they still meet the intent of the plan. If they didn't, we would tell you that. If we thought it was way out of bounds and really went against the grain of the long-range plan that's adopted, we would make mention of that. But in this case, they're simple projects that clearly meet the intent of the plan. So in our minds, it's completely appropriate, and then we would just work through that.
Thank you.
And then here's another photo of the condition of that trail. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to move on to the fifth project. So the project shown here, which is the Burlington Street Bridge Building Better Connections project, was originally submitted under the STBG program, but the committee recommended funding a portion of this project with TAP funds. They recommended that this project, in addition to the STBG funding, receive $425,750. So with the STBG funding and then this TAP funding, this project would receive a total of $10 million, or that's how the committee had recommended.
And the significance of that is just that there's only certain portions of projects that can be funded with certain funding streams. So if and when any project might receive these two funding streams, when that project moves forward, they literally just have to do what they call a division, and they have to make sure they're only getting reimbursed for certain types of eligible expenses. It's a little more paperwork on the back end of things, but when the funds are there, oftentimes it just makes sense to have a few different streams of funding.
So is this a little bit like, and anybody else can speak to this if you've got the answer. It sounds to me like this is a little bit like the difference between let's fund it through CDBG versus home, just because some things can be covered in a certain way. So you're not tapping out all of one funding
I think that's a
stream.
good analogy, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and that answered my question. I was like, well, why if we asked for 10 million before, did we get such an odd amount? But
Yes.
now I get it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Exactly.
So I'll move on to the carbon reduction program applications. And if you recall from our last meeting, some of this funding is available in October of this year. So the purpose of the carbon reduction program is to reduce transportation emissions. CRP funding may be used on a wide range of projects, such as public transportation, traffic monitoring, and bike and pedestrian facilities, and we're referring to it as TAP Plus. So anything that can be reimbursed under the TAP program can also be reimbursed under here, plus a few additional things. So the first project shown here is the Melrose Avenue Complete Streets project. This was submitted by the City of University Heights. This is to modify the existing Melrose Avenue corridor from Sunset Street to the east city limits to create a complete street facility that extends on-street bike lanes from Iowa City. It realigns the north and south legs of the intersection with Kozer and Gulfview Avenue to improve safety in the area. It improves crosswalks, adds additional roadway and pedestrian lighting, installs new traffic signals and pedestrian buttons to current design standards. The total project cost is $3,345,000, and they're requesting $1,175,000 in CRP funding. This project is in the long-range transportation plan. It received a project score of 39, and the TAC recommended funding this project at $750,000. And I don't have any additional photos for this project.
I guess I would maybe put the mayor on the spot. Same question as Megan Alter had earlier of how much could be accomplished with $750,000, given the ask was $1.7 million.
How much are we going to accomplish? It takes,
Of the project, since the amount requested was $1.7 million and the proposed
I
award
see.
is $750,000. What would that? Do you know how that would impact?
well,
What could be?
this is kind of an example of we've already received $730,000.
Okay.
And that one line, it says 730 for previous funding.
Oh, okay.
And then this part of the project, as Ken explained, fits exactly the carbon reduction program of the pedestrian and the bicycle lanes and all of that. So this fits in beautifully for that. And this has been a long time coming, like maybe we've needed this for 30, 40 years.
I do
to
ride my
line
bike
up
through
with
there a lot,
Iowa
so
City bike
I feel
lanes.
that.
And RTBC's been telling me we got to get bike lanes and things. And so we're very excited about this project.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that help?
It does. And I was misreading it. It's 1.175 million was the
Oh, yeah.
requested.
It was.
Okay. Thank you.
The second project is the Dubuque Street Improvements Phase 3 project. This project was submitted by North Liberty, and many of you may have taken Dubuque Street on your way in today. The project would reconstruct Dubuque Street within the city of North Liberty from just south of the East Cherry Street intersection, which is Dubuque Street Phase 1 limits, to just south of the East Zeller Street intersection, the future Dubuque Street Phase 2 limits. Existing conditions include a 2-lane asphalt roadway in varying condition with minimal gravel shoulders and open ditches. The reconstructed urban section would include 2 vehicle travel lanes, a new roundabout at a busy intersection, a storm sewer system, and relocating overhead utilities underground. The project will also reconstruct the existing 4-foot wide sidewalks to 5 feet wide within the project area, which will include ADA compliant curb ramps, and the existing 10-foot wide multi-use trail on the east side would remain. The total project cost is $4,495,000, and they are requesting $1,765,000 in CRP funding. This project is in the long-range transportation plan, and it received a project score of 34. TAC recommended funding this project at $1,715,000. And there are a couple more photos here. This is just south of the, I believe it is Zeller Street intersection, that will receive a roundabout to the north. Project number 3 is the Iowa River Trail West Bank project submitted by Iowa City. This is for the construction of a 10-foot wide trail and wide sidewalk along the west bank of the Iowa River and Riverside Drive, Old Highway 218. The total project cost is $4,250,000, and they are requesting $2,876,400 in CRP funding. This project is in the long-range transportation plan, and it received a project score of 28. The Transportation Technical Committee did not recommend any funding for this project. I believe I have a couple photos here. This is from Gilbert Street looking south.
Emily, can you explain why they didn't recommend any funding? Was it in terms of criteria in their score?
So my recollection is that the city said that this wasn't a priority and they wanted to put more of their weight towards the Burlington Street Bridge project. So I think it was sort of a, at the technical level, it's a little more workshoppy, right? Because we're working out all these details. And I remember as part of that conversation, the city engineer, Jason Hobble, said, if we're up against sort of a funding wall here to make it equitable for all the different communities, he said this would be a less priority. So I think in terms of where Iowa City wanted their money to go, they just decided it should go towards Burlington Street instead.
Yes, thank you.
What was that portion of the funding that said it would be funded separately on the previous map? There was like a little green bar. I just wanted clarification on what that meant. Trail
Would it
segment.
be this project? Are you referring to the project before? Or?
No, the one of the trail.
The one of the West Bank Trail. The green section that says trail segment anticipated to be constructed with separate project.
So that portion will be constructed with the bridge replacement project. So the bridge there crossing the river will be completed sometime in 2027, 28.
That's correct.
Joint project with the Iowa DOT
Okay.
and City of Iowa City.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious. Thank you.
No, that's a good question. And part of Iowa City, I know being the transportation planner for the city as well as my job here with the MPO, I know part of the idea behind this was to take advantage of the DOT's project replacing the bridge, because at that point in time, if they were to build this trail at the same time, they'd be able to take advantage of road closures and efficiencies within contractors and that sort of thing. So that was the idea behind this project. It's a good question.
So the fourth project is the Ranshaw Way Phase 6 Pedestrian Tunnel Improvements Project, which was submitted by North Liberty. The project would fund the construction of a proposed pedestrian tunnel in conjunction with the Ranshaw Way Phase 6 project, which is planned for city fiscal year 27. The city was awarded Surface Transportation Block Grant Program funding in 2021 in the amount of $3.9 million of the estimated $11.3 million cost for the project, which will reconstruct Ranshaw Way from Hawkeye Drive south to Forever Green Road, a section of roadway that's approximately 4,000 feet in length. Existing conditions include a mostly 2-vehicle travel lane roadway in varying condition with gravel shoulders and open ditches. Notably, there are no pedestrian or bicycle accommodations along this roadway section. Total project cost is $2,470,000, and they're requesting $877,000 in CRP funding. The project is in the long-range transportation plan. It received a project score of 19, and the TAC did not recommend any funding for this project. This is looking at Ranch Highway from the east.
So I'll bite. Why did the TAC decide not to fund that?
I
There's
don't
no
know.
discussion on that.
Yeah, I mean,
I just didn't know if it was
Yeah.
like, because again, there might be another project, or in terms of having to make some decisions about priorities.
Yeah.
I think all of those things. This one scored a little bit lower, and I think the same situation was where
Future state.
in kind of workshopping it, it just didn't come out.
Sure.
It just didn't rise to the top, as part of the proposal.
Okay.
Is the tunnel location, like, so indicated on that map, it looks like it's sort of halfway between Forever Green and whatever the next cross street is there? Or
Yes.
kind of like in the middle?
right, kind of right in here. So
And it is in the long range plan, so is that the location that it would still be even with the hospital on the intersection there?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's
Okay.
just partly taking advantage of the elevation.
Got it.
I mean, I'm not certain that it couldn't go another location, but I think it's part of the elevation is what they're taking advantage of here.
Okay. Thank you.
The fifth and final project is Dubuque Street Northeast and Forever Green Road Roundabout. This was a joint project submitted by Coralville and Johnson County. This is to construct a 4-leg single-lane roundabout to create a new intersection of Dubuque Street Northeast, Rustic Ridge Northeast, and Forever Green Road. It includes a 10-foot shared use path along the north side of Forever Green Road that will connect to the Dubuque Street Trail. Total project cost is $2,829,000, and they're requesting $1,585,371 in CRP funding. This project is in the long-range transportation plan, received a project score of 19, and the TAC recommended funding this project at $612,209. So I can certainly go back to any of those projects if you want to see anything else. Before the board considers the funding allocations, I wanted to point out a couple things. Project scores are meant to be one tool for consideration. Funding does not need to be allocated solely based on those scores. Funding cannot be apportioned strictly by population to our MPO entities. And then, as Laura had asked, we will work through any long-range plan amendments or federal aid amendments as necessary. So be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Emily, would it be helpful if you pulled up the actual
Yes.
Excel sheet just so everybody can see
Yes.
the,
I can.
it's in everybody's packets, but that's kind of the,
Rod has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, Emily, could you perhaps just explain to the best of your ability a 9-4 vote? It seems like a lot of times those are a little closer, or a little less close, I mean. There might be one dissenting vote, but 9-4 is more than I think we usually see.
Yeah, there was no explanation given with the opposition votes.
Okay.
I mean, in my estimation, I mean, that's exactly right. There was the 4 dissenting votes, 2 from Coralville, 2 from North Liberty, correct? Yeah, 2 from, and I think a little bit of what happened was Iowa City made the initial proposal. You know, at some point, you know, like I say, it's a little more workshoppy at the TAC level. We've got, you know, $15 million to allocate. Somebody at some point has to make a motion, right? I mean, you kind of workshop it as much as you can, but at some point you have to move forward. My estimation is that Iowa City put forth the bulk of the recommendations, and then we workshopped them a little bit. University Heights was able to garner a little bit more funding for their projects, and I think just by way of Iowa City making the motion, so to speak, and just having had that out there, even though there was a little bit of discussion, or there's a lot of discussion, but even though there's a little bit of change in the actual allocations, I think it just didn't satisfy the members from Coralville and North Liberty. I mean, my only assumption would be they hoped they had more funding, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But as Emily explained, there was no explanation given for it.
And it was voted on altogether, not separate line items.
Right, and the mayor and I actually talked about that a little bit before the meeting. We'd like to separate, the easier thing to do is to separate these out by funding source and vote on them. But because there's projects that receive funding across different funding sources, you kind of have to vote on them as a block, unfortunately, and that made it more difficult. The other thing I would say about this year that's been different than years past is the carbon reduction program is a completely new funding program. So instead of 2 funding programs, we've now got 3. And then to further complicate things this year, and we probably had a good solid 45 minutes worth of discussion, I would say, at the TAC, give or take. To further complicate things, we also, instead of just having a nice clean 2 years, usually if it weren't for the CRP money, the new funding program, and if it weren't for the new bipartisan infrastructure bill at the federal level, we would have always just had 2 years. So for those that have been on the board, usually it's 2 programs and it's 2 years. You vote on the funds, and then we even make sure that we can fit them in the correct year. Because the way it shook out with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, things were on pause, but then also they were fast forwarded because of the new program. So now we have 4 years, as you can see, this is the carbon reduction program. So now we've got 4 years that we have to allocate funds to for 3 different programs. So it just made it infinitely more difficult to do this year. I mean, it's a good problem to have. We have more funding. Just made it more difficult. And to my point earlier, we just couldn't separate them out and vote on them because they're tied together, because you can have multiple funding programs for one project. So it made everybody's job a little bit harder this year.
And just out of curiosity, because we love to talk about this, how confident are you about the carbon reduction plan dollars?
So far so good. How confident am I? I'm lukewarm, but and if there was any program that would go away, it would probably be the one called the carbon reduction program. But so far so good. And our federal partners have told us just to proceed. I've actually asked, and they said just proceed as normal, and we'll hope it's there. So it seems to me that the mayor and I were talking before the meeting, and as of a couple months ago, it was just rapid fire changes in my office like it was for all of you, I'm sure. That seems to have calmed down. So hopefully things are just going to be left alone, and all the funding will be there. That said, these are all 80-20 matches. So the difficulty for your administrations, or if you're administrators, is making sure that 20% match is in the year, which is hard to do. But then if the funding gets pulled, you've already got local funds allocated where you may not need them. So that poses a little bit of a budgeting issue as well. So I'm sure you feel that in a million other ways with your budgets, but that's also a kind of a nuance here that we've not had to deal with before.
Excuse the newbie question that this probably is going to be, but what timeline are these funds on? Is it like a yearly allocation? Is it like every 10 years? Like, I just don't know.
So we get funding allocated to us every year, but at one point in time, it was the decision of the committee and the board to allocate funding every 2 years, thereby allowing projects to receive larger funding amounts at one time. So then we're not going through the process every other year and allocating smaller portions of funding.
So if there's something that is a larger project that will require more money than 1 year could give us, then we would elect to wait. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and that's what we've done, and we continue to do. So we typically allocate every 2 years as compared to every year. Not to say that we couldn't go back to a yearly allocation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Projects also often go across years, which makes it hard.
Yeah, and Vee, to your point, some of these funds, so again, because we've got more funding years, so some of this funding is available much sooner than it is in years past. Usually we're out basically 4 years, 3 or 4 years. Some of this funding is available today because we've been waiting on it and because it's new funds. So my advice or recommendation would be that if you are allocated funds, try and get that project done as soon as you can, right? Oftentimes, because you're all trying to get your 20% match together, and because you have other pressures, of course, projects get pushed back, which is okay. For us, we can push those projects back, and the funding's still there. In today's world, I would say the sooner we get projects done, the better. And the other part of that is because of inflation and the price of projects, which you all know about, they're just skyrocketing. So the sooner a project can get done, the lower the overall project cost will be, and then hopefully the funds will be there and not get taken away. So at this point, as Emily stated, there's a TAC recommendation. We're happy to go through any of the projects as much as you would like, answer questions, similar to years past. The good thing about this agenda item is it's all what we've got $15 million to allocate, so it's a good problem to have if there's disagreement.
I want to say that I was at the TAC meeting, and there was some discussion, but there wasn't real in-depth discussion. But the first time that an engineer suggested, he suggested $10 million for Iowa City, and then there was like $400,000 left, and that for North Liberty and Corvallis. They're two wonderful projects. They're both needed. And so then what I saw was, I think it was the Corvallis engineer said, how about, and he suggested like maybe something like $2 million for North Liberty and Corvallis and $8 million. It was a little less maybe and a little more, 8 something. And then the Iowa City came back and said, well, we really need 10 million. So that's when he came up with this 9574 and 836. Is that what that says? And there wasn't any further discussion there. And then when we got down to TAP, I think that's when the money from the TAP moved up to give, where is that TAP? To give Iowa City to make up that 426,757. That's how I saw that it worked out. And so that's what I know. Theirs is a $70 million project, and North Liberty and Corvallis, $6.8 million project, and there's only so much money. That's what I saw.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Louise. And the other thing about this is, to Oliver's question earlier, we go through this process every 2 years. This year's funding amount's a little bigger than others because we have the new funding program that kicked in sooner. But they're all good projects, to your point, Louise. They're all good projects. Any project gets money is a good thing. But also, we'll be back in 2 years. It's kind of you got to play to win scenario. We'll be back in a couple of years. And oftentimes, it's not always the case, but oftentimes if Iowa City gets a big allocation this year, they might not come back and ask for so much money in 2 years, right? And in fact, Tiffin did not submit a project this year.
No.
I did not ask why, but I can only assume it's because they've done pretty well in years past. They still have projects to complete, and they probably just thought it wasn't worth their time to add another project to the list of things that they need to get done, come up with their 20% and that sort of thing. So over the years, as Emily mentioned, we can't allocate by population. We can't do that. But we have sort of tracked how everyone's doing over the years. And, per capita, I would say it's pretty equitable. It sort of, it fluctuates from year to year, but overall, per capita, all the communities have done really well, and they're all similar, I would say. So, So I think everybody, too, and to credit to all of you all, I think everybody's been fair about sort of shuffling the deck a little bit, making sure everybody's getting what they need when they need it, and being fair about it. So that's been positive from a director standpoint. That's not been the case at all MPO levels in the state. So that's nice that we're able to do that here.
Thanks for explaining that. So
I'll just start.
do we
I'm
want a
comfortable
motion, or do we
with
want more discussion?
I wasn't going to make a motion. I was just going to say I'm comfortable with the committee's recommendation. I think I appreciate the context about the Iowa City West Side trail, because to me that kind of stuck out as less critical as than something like the Melrose improvements or the roundabout in North Liberty. So I'm comfortable with it, and I guess this is just sort of temperature taking.
And in fairness, I was also pushing for $750,000 for University Heights. We're small, and you know that, and we don't have a project every year purposely, because we have to kind of wait for a project. And so I got to say, if everything's equal, I push for a lot of money there too.
Well, I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the recommendations of the TAC.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
motion and a second. Okay, is everyone ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Emily, are you next again? Or it's Hannah, isn't it? Hannah, so we move to C, consider approval of the MPOJC Title VI program.
Good afternoon, Hannah Neal, Associate Transportation Planner. As Louise said, today we are asking the Policy Board to approve the MPOJC Title VI program, because MPOJC receives federal funding, we are required to submit a board-approved Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, Title VI program every 3 years per the Iowa DOT. Each of our 3 transit agencies, Coralville Transit, Iowa City Transit, University of Iowa Campus, are also required by FTA to submit a Title VI program, and MPOJC prepares and submits these programs on behalf of our agencies. The Title VI program assures non-discrimination as outlined in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in any program or activity receiving federal funding. The broader application of the Title VI non-discrimination law can be found in other statutes, regulations, and executive orders, including the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. This Title VI program provides guidelines for our organization, MPOJC, to follow in order to comply with all Title VI requirements for non-discrimination, and addresses MPO programs such as access, benefits, participation, treatment, services, training, contracting opportunities, allocation of funds, language assistance, and the investigation of complaints. The document also names me as the MPOJC Title VI coordinator, and staff is requesting the approval from the board of this MPOJC Title VI program. I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time. And the document is within your packet for your reference.
And this, Hannah?
Oh, yes. What you have before you is an updated map. There were just a few data points that we were waiting on. This is within attachment F. It's extra background information, special needs housing, in relation to our transit service lines, as well as our existing CRP, STBG, and TAP project locations as listed in our TIP, or our Transportation Improvement Program.
So we were waiting on some data points, so Hannah just wasn't able to have that in the packet by last week when we mailed. So we'll make sure that was in your hands.
Thank you.
Any questions? So we have a vote to consider approval of this Title VI program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Brian here. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And Hannah, you're going to do talk about the FY26 transit program of projects.
Yes. This is just an informational update. We're not asking you to make a motion or approve anything at this time. Coralville Transit, Iowa City Transit, and University of Iowa CAMBUS are programming projects for FTA funds in FY26. And the projects will be included in our FY26 consolidated transit funding application that MPOJC completes for each of our transit systems, as well as being in the FY26 to 29 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. As a reminder, not every project listed in the program of projects will be funded. However, to be eligible for federal funding, these projects must be included in the program of projects. It's a fiscally constrained document. Again, these projects will be included in our draft TIP, which will also be presented to you at your May meeting, so you will see these again. All three transit agencies will hold public hearings and have their program of projects approved as part of their consolidated funding application process by May 1. And looking through the program of projects, Coralville Transit has a total of 8 heavy-duty replacement buses, 2 light-duty replacement buses, and 4 light-duty expansion buses, 2 of which are electric in their program of projects. Iowa City Transit has a total of 26 replacement buses in their program of projects, including 4 heavy-duty electric, 10 heavy-duty diesel, and 2 hybrid diesel-electric, and 10 light-duty buses. And CAMBUS has a total of 18 replacement buses in their program of projects, including 1 heavy-duty, 6 heavy-duty electric, and 9 heavy-duty diesel, as well as 2 light-duty buses. Within these program of projects, we also include things like operating assistance. Our 5307 and our 5310 are also 5310 funds are also included in there, as well as other miscellaneous items. Again, this is an informational update. You will have a chance to review these projects again at your May meeting, and when they're included in the draft TIP, and they will be approved at that time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions?
About the electric buses, I've been trying to get to the bottom of like the Iowa City's electric buses and just like the actual condition that they're in. I've gotten mixed information. I was wondering if you know.
That might be a question better answered by our director, Michael Gam.
Okay.
Say that, and Kent, you can probably also speak to this. There have been issues with the former contractor for the buses going out of business. So there have been some struggles as far as getting replacement parts, techs to come out and work on these buses. But I will say that Iowa City Transit is diversifying their electric fleet moving forward. So hopefully we have fewer of those issues.
Yeah, and I know, Oliver, we spoke about the other day too. As far as I know, they're still using them. I think it's just sparingly, and the cold weather is hard on the batteries and that sort of thing. But we will find out, and I'll make sure to get in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. We'll go to update on the MPOJC Long Range Transportation Plan revision process. Hi, Madeline.
Hello, Madeline Stone, Associate Transportation Planner. So I'm here to just provide an update about our long-range transportation plan revision process. So per federal requirements, MPOs must update their long-range transportation plans every 5 years in order to receive federal funding under the infrastructure needs and projects for the years 2027 through 2055 to be considered for inclusion in the plan. There will be plenty of opportunities for public engagement, and staff will be providing updates to this board throughout the process. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit with the program applications and everything, but if you're interested in learning more about the LRTP, the current plan is on our website. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, so this is a big lift for us. This takes, as Madeline said, about 18 months or so. We've always done this in-house rather than hire consultants to do this. We've always just felt that we have as good or better of understanding of our system than anyone. So you'll all be getting a lot of touch points from us here in the next 18 months to 2 years, basically, where we'll be asking you to approve language and review documents. We'll also, of course, be working with all your staffs to get the information we need. So it's a big lift for us, but it's also kind of fun for us since this is planning is what we do, and we're a group of planners. So.
Yes, it seems like those 5 years go fast because of the two. It's like every 3 months.
Seems like they
every
go
3 years.
very fast.
Yeah.
I'm counting how many more long-range plans I have in my career.
Hey. Which is a long-range
you.
plan.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thanks, Madeline. Update on metro area bicycle and pedestrian collision data, and that's Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Walls, Associate Transportation Planner with the MPO. Yes, ensuring the safety and comfort of bicyclist and pedestrian is a key priority for the MPO and its member communities. The collision data that this is all based on comes from the Iowa DOT's crash analysis tool. As far as numbers go, pedestrian and bicycle collisions make up a very small proportion of all collisions, but they disproportionately are represented in the severe and fatal category. So that's why we want to pay extra attention to them. I should also say that both pedestrian and bicycle collisions are probably underreported. I mean, motor vehicle collisions are reported because there's damage to a vehicle, but I would guess unless a bike is severely damaged or a person is injured, that we're probably not hearing about it. So I should also mention that in the second paragraph, that final sentence is incomplete, that collisions that take place on I-80, 380, and on 218, those are not included in here because those are not facilities that are intended, that are restricted from bicycle and pedestrian usage. So we don't include those numbers. And those tend to be, we don't see bicycle collisions on the interstate or 218, but we do see what is categorized as pedestrian, and a pedestrian is really anyone who's not in a vehicle. So often, think about when somebody's car breaks down and they're on the side of the road, that would be a pedestrian, and fatalities and serious collisions do occur there, but are not included in this report.
Sarah, where are you gathering information, the data for collision?
So that's from the Iowa DOT's crash analysis tool.
So it's not like reported from like hospitals or something to you about?
No. So what'll happen is that police and other law enforcement, when they respond, they file those reports right away. And it's pretty incredible how quickly they wind up with the DOT. A few of them are held out for investigation, but they appear pretty quickly in there. And we're checking those all the time, I should say. So.
But also to your question, if, for instance, I am in a bicycle accident on my own and I don't get hurt, or even if I do get hurt and don't call the police, those aren't reported. So some, and for that matter, there are probably bicycle and vehicle collisions that don't get reported.
Yep.
Bicyclist gets up, dusts themselves off, said, yeah, I'm okay, I'm busy, I'm going to go about my day, and then that would not be reported.
Yep.
Thank you.
So with regard to the bicycle collisions, starting with those, we did see numbers declining sort of 2015, 2016 through 2023, but then the numbers started to pick up dramatically this last year, and that was unfortunate to see. And what we're seeing too in those numbers, so you can see those in the chart, we not only saw the numbers jump a great deal, 60%, but also the number that were serious and fatal. So that's an area to be concerned with, as we're seeing more collisions, but also more that result in serious and fatal injury. I should say fatality, last year we didn't have any serious or fatal bicycle collisions anywhere in the metro. We did this year. And so we have no way of knowing at this point whether that's a trend or whether this is an anomaly. We hope it's an anomaly. But that's why we track these numbers. So we would be looking at these over 3 and 5 year periods to kind of see what the trend is. And I neglected to mention, so that crash information is also important because those go into what you guys just did, the scoring for the STBG and TAP. We look at all that safety information as part of that scoring. It also goes into other grant applications that communities might be applying for. It goes into our long-range transportation plan as a performance measure, and we're in the process now of finalizing plans for our safe streets and roads for all, our safety action plan that we got a federal grant for, and so we'll be using those numbers in that as well. And then in the pedestrian collision category, we see those numbers going up as well. And not only, again, the numbers going up, but the percentage that are serious or fatal injury. So again, we have no way of knowing if this is a long-term trend or an anomaly, but we want to keep an eye on those. And, we try to check into we're able to, for Iowa City, do more checking than we are for other communities, but hopefully within your communities, when those collisions occur, your engineers, I would assume, are looking at those situations wherever there's a serious injury or fatality to see what the cause is.
Sarah, I understand that you don't know if this is an anomaly or a trend, but was there an increase between 2023 and 2024 in other places in the country that you know of? Like, is this?
I think in general, after COVID, there was a jump. But then my recollection is the national data saw sort of a plateau and an easing off. But I would also say that with all of our communities, like we're seeing more trail extensions, more facilities, more places to bike and walk. And as more people bike and walk, there's more opportunity for collisions. So not to say that that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing, but it does come with the with the territory of more people walking and biking, and we can see that from usually most of these collisions, and they continue to be in Iowa City, close to the university campus. Obviously, we have lots and lots of people out biking and walking and driving in those areas. So lots of opportunities for conflict, but the numbers that are underneath there show you that they're starting to pop up in other areas of the community too. So North Liberty and Coralville both had some serious collisions.
And it looks like we're looking mostly at raw numbers, not like a adjusted per capita.
I think so. If we were looking at motor vehicle collisions, because we are more aware of what the average daily traffic is or trips on the road, we can balance those out as a rate. We don't have counts for how many pedestrians and bikes are on every street in all the different communities, so we can't. It's harder to look at that as a rate per person walking in this area. What that rate is.
I was just thinking overall population increase, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Rod has a question.
Sarah, I have a question.
Sure.
This is just, this might be really odd, but, and I don't know if this impacts data, but I was looking into this a while ago, and I don't know why this is, but a bicyclist can legally operate on the sidewalk.
Correct.
Although we, usually try to make accommodations in the roadway, they can.
For sure.
So University Heights, Coralville, and North Liberty all treat a collision between a vehicle and a bicyclist who's on a sidewalk as a chargeable offense, and they all will write a ticket to the driver of the car, assuming the driver of the car is the one at fault.
Yeah.
They'll do that. Iowa City will not.
I am not.
And they say they will not because it's not in the roadway. And for what it's worth, I'm not here to criticize Iowa City Police, but the other cities all sort of looked at me very bewilderedly when I said that and said, that just doesn't make any sense to us.
I would have to check on that, Rod. I don't know, but we do have collisions. Collisions do occur like in driveways. Yeah. Someone, a motorist exiting or entering a driveway strikes someone. That is captured in the data. Now, whether somebody is ticketed for the offense, we don't necessarily know.
It's just something that I found really curious, and this stems from the fact that I know two different people who had exactly that, and they were both relatively serious, but technically because they were riding on the sidewalk in Iowa City, nothing happened. And then when I heard the Coralville cyclist, when I started making noise about it, they said the exact same thing happened to me, and the person was charged, and they needed to be charged in order for the Coralville cyclist to collect insurance. It was a very expensive bike, so it was important.
This is news to me. Yeah.
It struck me as very odd, and it seems like if there's an ability to be consistent in that, regionally, since we kind of tackle bicycling regionally, that would be good. I realize that's out of your wheelhouse as planners, but
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, that's news to me. However, Sarah particularly does work with the communities to try and get code language to be the same. So, I mean, this isn't code, but it's a policy, it sounds like. So, yeah, no, I'd be
We
curious.
could certainly ask about it. I'm not aware of that, Rod.
Yeah,
but-
if you could look into it, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, we can.
And the other thing is that we were just, in the past couple of days, we've been going over with potential firms that would do this safety action plan for us. And they'll be looking really carefully at policies and programs as well as engineering, and be looking at, we can't always tell from the raw report, from the, the reports that we pull off the DOT, whether something happened in a driveway or not. I mean, usually we can, but not always. But they'll be looking at all of that more carefully, so we can raise that issue at that time too.
Yeah, we will.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ron.
I had one question. So did you say that, I'm trying to look at the chart here now, for the bicycle collisions, you said a lot of those took place around the university for last year, like around like the Pentecrest area, or just university in general?
Well, I would say generally the downtown and campus area, both east and west campus. Yeah.
Do you know if the city's ever looked into like protective curbs for bike lanes?
Protected bike lanes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at bollard protected bike lanes, a pilot project right now. I will say that much of that depends on the width that you have in the street, because you have to have a certain minimum lane width. We don't have a lot of roadways that are wide enough for those. And then the other place where, like typically in bigger cities where you see like curb protected bike lanes, it's usually along a block where there isn't a lot of interruption of driveways, like need for driveway breaks. But yes, we are looking at that, but I would say that there's a limited number of streets where we can fit those.
Okay, and if we found places where that would be used, is this something that we could get from like TAC or something?
So yeah, you could apply for a TAP project. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
you could. Yeah, those would be the kind of projects. So the city would have to put forward that. Now, whether they would want to, just so that you know, like the TAP funding, it's not like if somebody doesn't get TAP funding, a project won't take place. And a lot of projects take place without TAP or STB funding. But yes, it would be eligible for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking about particularly the area by Old Capitol Mall by the university where there's that bike lane. And there's always just cars parked there with their hazards on because, I mean, it's people just doing their job. They're trying to
Yeah,
go
so
get-
that's probably an area where we would not have a protected bike lane.
Yeah, and it's because there's people parking there. Like there's
Yes.
parking spots.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and I'm not sure that the roadway width is wide enough there either, just in Iowa
For
City.
sure. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
I just see people, bikers rear end those cars all the time. And
Yeah.
So because this is not an area that we have a lot of experience with in the metro area, we don't have any bollard protected bike lanes or fully concrete protected bike lanes that I'm aware of. The city of Iowa City actually hired Tool Design, which is out of Minneapolis, which is a leader nationally in doing this type of work. So to Sarah's point, Iowa City is looking into that, and they have Tool Design working on a project now.
perfect. Thank you.
Yep, or a study now, I should say, to look for a project.
Thank you,
All
Sarah.
right, thank you.
Okay, and then Kent, you want to talk about the Iowa Bicycle Coalition study?
Yeah, thanks. So under other business, I've got there a link to the economic and health impacts of bicycling in trails in Iowa. So that link takes you to the Iowa Bicycle Coalition study that was completed in the last month or two. And I wanted to bring it to your attention, A, because it's a good study and it's got some good information, B, because this is also what this board allocated $2,500 to back at our November meeting. So Luke Hoffman, the director, had come and asked for a small donation, so to speak, and we did that. Luke Hoffman has also told me that he is trying to schedule or has scheduled a presentation with the Board of Supervisors on May 1st. So if you're interested in hearing a presentation from Luke Hoffman, who's the director of the Iowa Bicycle Coalition, it sounds like May 1st is the date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to adjournment? Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, it's second, I hear over here. All in favor, say aye.